Hello, everybody. Welcome to this free group session on June 13th of 2023. We will be getting started in a very formal fashion in about a minute or two. But before that time starts, and we're not really going to get started formally, I just want to let everybody who's on this call live know that this is being recorded. So if you do not want to see your face potentially on YouTube or have your name on YouTube inadvertently, as can happen when we record these things and then put them on YouTube via Zoom, you are going to want to, be just black. And if that is you, if that describes you and you want to comment, just comment in the comment section, the chat section, and I'll read your question. That said, I do encourage people to talk to me. You can just have your audio on, or you can have your video and your audio on. I love that. But this is a free session, but part of the way I do free sessions is I record them and then post, a lot of the stuff, if not all of the stuff, onto YouTube. So it's a little bit different than a paid group session, which is private and, kept in-house. So yeah, if you don't want your privacy revealed or your identity revealed on YouTube, just keep that in mind. I'm going to say that one more time really quickly, and then we're going to get started. For those of you just joining live, this session is being recorded and will in all likelihood be put on YouTube. So if you do not want your face or your name or your voice seen or heard on YouTube, just be discreet. And if you have a question for me, you can put your name in the chat. If you don't mind having your face or voice out there, by all means, interact with me live. I love that. And I hope that you do it. So without further ado, let's get started. This is kind of an impromptu free session I decided to do just because it felt right. And there is no subject matter for today. There's no special subject matter. The last free group session we did was kind of like emotional healing, SP, specific person related. This is not like that. This is going to be a free-flowing discussion we have over the next hour and a half. So yeah, I encourage you to take part if you want to, but again, as always, there's zero pressure. There's never any pressure. And to underscore this point that there's zero pressure, let's do a quick grounding exercise like we often do at the beginning of these sessions to just kind of get us into that headspace where we don't feel, unduly pressured to do something in the next 60 or 90 minutes or whatever. So if you want to put your hand over your heart or just relax in your chair or on the couch, or if you're walking, you can just kind of do this. You can just try to relax your body while you're walking or moving. The point of this exercise is just to feel okay now, in the sense that you, in my opinion, do feel okay when you don't put pressure on yourself. Like, what's wrong with you right now if you don't think about something that's wrong? Really nothing, in my opinion. We are so full of self-judgment, self-criticisms, self-appraisals. Throughout the day, it seems like at least most of us are. And we can just drop that right now. We're here. We are here physically. And mentally, we might have that self-judgments going on in our head, but we don't have to pay them any mind. We don't have to buy into them right now. They can just be there. Let them be there for the next hour or two if you want. Just let them be there. You don't have to, it's no big deal. I'm telling you, it's no big deal for right now. All right. This is not a situation where you have to use your head to do anything special. No big deal. Whatever's going through your mind, if it's bothering you, it's okay. Just let it be there. It's no big deal for the time being. Likewise, physically, if you feel off, like if you feel like, I don't know, your head's hurting, or, there's some physical agitation in your body, let that go too. That's no problem. Let the self-judgment go. Let that pain or that agitation be there. No big deal. No big deal. I always say it, but it's so true. This no big dealness. I'm here right now. I'm okay right now. Like that. That's definitely the backbone of my own spiritual practice, if you want to use a grandiose word, but just like my day-to-day living to keep me feeling okay and sane is that. Like there's nothing wrong. Everything's fine right now. Like it's okay if I have self-judgment. It's okay if my body doesn't feel great. It's okay if I have seemingly crazy thoughts. They're there. So what? It's okay. It's okay. And this is why, I often talk about, like, if we're going to use spiritual language, right? Like, the golden key approach, or like the absolute method, because if we look at this, when we use spiritual language, like, to God, everything is perfect, everything is fine. In a way, that's what we're doing when we are okay with everything right now. It's all good. Oh, my body doesn't feel good. Oh, I've got these crazy thoughts. Oh, I don't know what to do next. It's all good. And I think if we can just remind ourselves of that, not just intellectually, but actually ground ourselves, in a way like this a couple times a day, or more often if we want, just doing that. First of all, it does make us feel better, because the lack of self-judgment just makes us feel better. But also, surprisingly, I think you will eventually, or perhaps quickly, see some external shifts in your world just by being okay right now. Like, I'm not trying to get anything right now. I'm not trying to change anything right now. I know that, in God's eyes, everything is already perfect. I don't have to change anything. It's okay. I'm okay. I'm okay. Like, literally, I'm okay. Like, I feel okay right now. I was with my 5-year-old at the zoo earlier, right? And like, we were on a bench, she was eating goldfish, there was a camel behind us. No big deal. It was good. And I was like, this is as good as it gets, but not in a profound, deep way, but just like, this is it. That mundane, everything's okay. And maybe everything's better than okay. We can all tap into that. It's not a special power. So, just think of that whenever you want, and certainly think of that, remind yourself of that if you want over the next hour or two when we're together. And with that, I open session. Like I said, I have nothing specific that I want to discuss today. So we can really go wherever we want with it. And we can also, have a lot of silence, which is fine. So yeah, if anybody wants to write something in the chat, I know these things often are slow to get going and then they kind of snowball. But if anyone wants to write anything in the chat, or if anybody wants to speak up on video or audio, they can do that. And if not, I'll just keep talking about stuff. And hydrating.
Hi, Tim. I do have a question just to further what you were saying about the okay. It's kind of interesting because a spiritual teacher that I listen to satsang sometimes, and that's the exact, I actually wrote it down. It's okay. And I recognize that my nervous system, when I do that, when I say it, when I'm present with it, it totally relaxes. So it's really interesting that you're on that subject too. However, what I struggle with sometimes when it comes to, I'm kind of new to the whole consciously trying to manifest things, situations or whatever.
Sure.
I confuse. I do struggle with the contradiction there of it's obviously not okay if I'm trying to make something else happen or manifest this or that, or um, it it kind of goes kind of really deep there. I struggle. I go through periods where I'm actively, I read the books a little bit, I listen to you, and then I go to a satsang or I do something like that. And there seems to be a contradiction there. And I'm wondered if you recognize that, or if you can expound on that, or give me your wisdom on that.
I don't know if wisdom's the word I would use, Joyce. Um, yeah, no, definitely. I could talk about this for the next hour. So it's a great question, and I'll try to give a somewhat. I'll try to make sense as much as I can. You mentioned a satsang, or like some kind of like a more religious, non-dual or meditational type of practice, compared to like a more of like, I'm trying to improve my life on a practical level type of practice, which is more of like these manifesting ideas, right? We look at them usually more from like, I'm trying to practically improve things in my life. And a lot of non-dual stuff or Zen stuff, I don't know exactly what, feel free to clarify or not. It's up to you. A lot of the more like pure spiritual practice is just like, I'm going to find spiritual truth, right? Again, feel free if that doesn't fit what you're going.
No, it is the non-dual practices that I've
Okay.
been for several years. Yeah.
Right. So, for me, that's, I was into that stuff well before I got into the LOA stuff. And for me, I usually most of the time almost like to separate them completely. Like my deep, I say the word deep, obviously that's not a great word to use. There's no really good word to use, but like for me, like my spiritual practice, like the depth, I still go to that deep truth that like everything is okay, right? But when we talk about manifesting specific things and improving our lives, it's about getting things into our life. And all those people attending non-dual retreats have to get things in their life to survive. And most of them, in my experiences, having gone to a lot of those type of things, are doing a pretty bad job at doing that. I think that the law of attraction, manifesting, law of assumption, whatever term you want to use, it's about practically improving elements in your life. So the things you need, and perhaps even the things you want or desire, come into your life more easily. And in my opinion, there is no contradiction with that and non-dual Zen or whatever kind of practice. Zero contradiction at all. There's nothing wrong with wanting to manifest specific things into your life. That said, often people who have that kind of non-dual Zen, again, these words are not great, but whatever, you get what I'm saying, that kind of background, like it seems like both you and I have, we're better off going general because we feel more comfortable going general than being like, I want that, hot pink sports car or something like that, right? That makes us feel better in a way. But we all have needs. Human beings have needs that have to be fulfilled one way or the other. I think practicing these ideas in a mature way, an honest way with yourself, and it's going to be different for each person, but practicing these ideas helps us so we get what we need and want more easily. And that makes us a more helpful person to others and a more compassionate person to others, in my experiences. Again, everybody is different. But I really do look at them as almost two separate things with several interesting similarities and seemingly things that cross over, but only cross over marginally a lot of the time. And one of the things that certainly seems to cross over is this idea of like, everything's okay right now, right? Let's look at that from like a non-dual perspective. Everything's okay right now. Okay, everything's okay right now. But like what I've seen in my own life, and like, I've written about this like in Relax More, Try Less, or Manifestation Through Relaxation, is that when I really feel okay and relaxed, And then especially if I throw in a little bit of like expectancy to that, like, well, I expect good things to come into my life. If I just do that very gently and feel relaxed because everything is okay right now. And as we went over earlier, everything is okay right now. If we just get to that honest place with ourselves, everything is already okay. If I access this okayness more of the time, it does seem like the things I need and the things I want, or perhaps even just desire, even though it's not clear why I desire them, it seems like it's easier and more fluid and flowy for those things to manifest in my life, as opposed to just going to like, say, Zen retreats or non-dual retreats. A lot of that stuff, in my opinion, this is going to rub some people the wrong way, is simply spiritual bypassing, spiritual materialism. I think that the obsession with, Eastern style meditation and stuff like that in the West is really, it's just like another material pursuit for people. And all these biohackers and people talking about how cool and how productive meditation will make you be. I don't resonate with that. And I've spent a lot of time in meditation centers and stuff like that. And I feel more comfortable practicing these law of attraction ideas because they're more pragmatic for me and for my family and for my friends and for my community. And that said, I intentionally don't have much of a law of attraction community interaction. This is about as interactive as we get, because this space, the law of attraction community, as I always talk about, is atrocious. But that's obvious. What's not obvious is how atrocious the spiritual non-dual Zen space often is. We always have to watch out for spiritual materialism, spiritual bypassing in our lives. I just think we're being more honest with ourselves if we're saying, all right, I want this. And I know there's different tools that can maybe help me get this, like auto-suggestion or visualization or, whatever technique you want to use. I'd rather be honest about that and like follow teachers like Neville or Joseph Murphy or whoever talking about getting things, who know how to get things in that way, than like a Zen teacher or a non-dual teacher who's maybe very good at giving advice on a deeply spiritual level, but on the practical material level, not necessarily as good. And you might disagree with that. Like, I think a lot of the Zen teachers that I was really into and still am into a lot, like Shunryu Suzuki, the guy who wrote Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind, that guy had like an amazing practical viewpoint on how to live your life, but a lot of the times it's just like, I don't know. I just feel like there's a culture of lack around a lot of that stuff that doesn't need to be there. And in the law of attraction community, there's a culture of bullshit around a lot of it too. So I don't know which one's worse, which one's better, but it's all things we can work with on an individual level. Does that make any sense?
It does. Yeah, because I'm with you there when it comes to the whole community of the non-dual. I mean, I'm very picky, and then I even swing from there to go and I'm a fan of Shiv. I don't know if you know Shiv. Zen Gupta is his name. He's radically critical and of the whole culture, and I love his mind. I love how he cuts right to the chase with all that. And so yeah, there's a lot going on. Yeah, I just thought, yeah, you so to, like, I guess I keep it separate almost intuitively, because I go through a period of time where I'm setting that aside and I'm doing that, and then I'm setting that aside and I'm going back, not back, but more into that. And it's all good. I just thought, well, I'm glad that you know what I'm talking about. Thank you.
I think a lot of people on this call know exactly what you're talking about. I mean, like, yeah, I mean, that's like, I've done several podcast episodes, especially early on in the podcast, discussing this. This is a big thing. I mean, I think it's a really I'm using the word mistake, but take that lightly. I think it's a mistake to connotate a lot of these law of attraction teachings with like the deeper spiritual stuff. It's like, would I go to a Zen master to manifest a new car? Probably not. Like, would I go to like Neville to like figure out like how to achieve like a deep equilibrium of peace? Probably not. I know a lot of people would disagree about that. They think that Neville has all the answers, but I certainly don't. I would much rather go to like a Zen teacher that I respected for that. So yeah, that for me, that divider's there. You can also look at this from purely like, again, the psychological standpoint where like the law of attraction manifesting stuff, we take all spirituality out of it. And you've got your spiritual practice, which is more non-dual Zen or what have you. And I don't think I know the person you were mentioning. I'm curious. I'll have to check him out. And then like, just get very practical in like an Emile Coué, Maxwell Maltz psycho-cybernetics way, where there's really nothing spiritual about this manifesting stuff if you look at it from that perspective, and you're just trying to improve your life. You're just like, is there anything wrong with self-improvement? Well, I mean, you could, you get into this non-dual stuff and it's like, well, we're negating the self. Why am I trying to improve myself when the self isn't real? But then if I take a hammer and smash your foot, you probably realize yourself seems pretty real at that point. People have to pay their rent, their bills, take care of their lives, right? On a practical level. This LOA stuff is so helpful in doing that, in my opinion, so helpful, much more helpful than this more, I don't know what word to use again, deeper I want to use, but like removed spiritual talk, which I love. I still love that stuff, but I just don't think it's as practical. So it's like two different things you can play with.
Right. Very good.
It's a great question too. I love that that you asked that, and that people have, whenever people ask me stuff like that, because it's just not discussed enough. If you ask me that tomorrow, I might give you a totally different answer, but it would have the same underlying themes. You know what I'm saying? Like, yes. So yeah. Great. That's a great jumping off point. Just going to read the chat here. Kate saying it's a great explanation. I think with any community, you find groupthink in annoying trends where the original concept, usually a good one, is drained of all meaning. Yes, completely agree. Sorry, I missed a letting go question. Can we talk about letting go and what it actually takes to get what we want when it's a need that's gone unmet too long and there's legitimate attachment to outcomes such as financial stability and security, or abundant supply when almost all that's been known for so long is lack? Good question. Let's go there. Hold on one second. I just want to make sure I'm looking at these others here. Okay, and okay, so Shiv Singh Gupta. Okay, I'll have to check that out, Joyce. Thank you for that recommendation. Okay, this is a good question. Can we talk about letting go? We've been talking a lot about letting go on the YouTube channel recently. What it takes to get what we want when it's gone unmet too long and there's legitimate attachment to outcomes such as financial stability and security, or abundant supply when almost all that's been known for so long is lack. This is a great question. I mean, this is the work. This is like the tough stuff. This is stuff I still struggle with. The first thing I would say here in regards to this question is, I did a playlist last year, which this person who asked this question might have already watched it, called it's called Inner Supply. And it's about like bringing out our inner supply, which is a pretty far out concept. The idea behind that is basically that our supply is from within, not from without. And the problem is recognizing that. We don't recognize the abundance we have within us. That sounds very cliche and is almost totally unhelpful unless it's applied in some substantive way in our life, which I think is what this question is pointing to. but I would start by saying, check out, if you watched it, maybe watch it again, or refer to some of the teachers like Joel Goldsmith, who I speak a lot about in that series, in his book, Invisible Supply, about this idea of bringing out our sense of abundance within. Money is very tough for a lot of people, myself included. Lack, fear of running out of money, fear of not having enough, fear of dying under a bridge, not being able to supply for ourselves or for our loved ones. Those are fears that a lot of us have. And if there was a simple answer, someone would sell a course for $1 million and it would sell out really quickly, because it's something that really, really bothers, I would say, the majority of the adult population. So first of all, understand that. There's a couple other books I want to recommend before we talk about letting go in regards to this area. A good book about this that's popular, that's modern, is called Rich as Fuck by Amanda Frances. Amanda Frances was, she has a counseling background, and now she's like a money guru. But most money gurus suck, and she doesn't. She's the real deal. I would read that book, and I would consider taking some of her courses, because she just has a lot of success working with people in regards to, people who felt lackful, turning it around for them. I also like Genevieve Rackham, who's along those same lines. She's the author of Sexy Money. But personally, what I would say in terms of letting go when it comes to money and having these attachments, I'm just reading your question again. There's a lot of things we have to question, first of all. So for instance, like in your question, what it actually takes to get what we want when it's a need that's gone unmet too long, and there is legitimate attachment to outcomes. So in regards to money, it's a need that's gone unmet. Is that actually true? Right now, you're here, and I don't know how that feels to you, but if it's in some way you're still alive, even if your needs seemingly have been unmet. A lot of this stuff, feel free to chime in too if you're on the line.
It feels a lot of the time like nose above water,
Yep.
It's been like that for so long. Like, will I ever get on solid ground,
Yes. Okay,
to
great.
catch my breath and just be able to just like breathe easy,
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, great. Thank you for, audioing in. It makes it much easier as long as you're comfortable with that. Yeah. So that is, awareness is a big key here, obviously, right? Like, I'm trying to give you what I would say is non-cliche advice. And like, everything I've said so far seems pretty cliche to me. That's a mindset. And I think you already know that.
Well, yeah, it's like generational,
right,
know?
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Generations deep,
Yeah. And that's a story. I mean, it stops right now with you.
Yeah.
One exercise I like, or really one outlook I like, is like, how can you feel abundant right now?
Yes, for practice.
That's hard, And do you give away money freely?
I've heard you talk about that. I have not actually had money to do that with.
You've got money to do. You've got money to do that with.
I never seem to have like cash, but what I do is if I find change on the ground, I don't pick it up. I'll put it heads up so someone gets good luck.
So a lot of like the idea of giving money when you feel like you don't have it is important, in my opinion, in some shape or form.
Mm.
And that could be like you're giving $1 away. And you might tell me you don't feel like you don't have $1. That's fine. But you want to give a little bit of what you have, So you don't just find it and flip it. It's yours and you give it away.
Okay.
A really good book. Maybe I would toss this book in here too if you haven't looked at it yet. The Victor Bach book, How to Solve All Your Money Problems Forever. I think it's called that. It's got a long title.
Great title.
Yeah, all he recommends in that book. It's a great book. First of all he recommends in that book is give away at least 1%. He says between 1 and 5% of the money you make each month, and then he just basically says do affirmations every day. And that book has been very popular for 40 years, and he has some incredible testimonials, which I believe of people having a lot.
That book again, please. I missed it. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's How to Solve All Your Money Problems Forever by Victor Bach. B-O-C is his last name. Yeah.
Okay.
The other thing is like, have you listened to that playlist that
I have.
Okay.
I have, and I continue to refer back to it.
Okay.
You know what? I also did the 7-day mental diet.
Great.
And then I did the
Success Indicator.
I did. Haven't really implemented that the way I want yet. It's by the time I try to do any nighttime practice, I'm usually so tired that I fall asleep before I can give it my full attention, but I'm working on that.
Could you do it in the morning instead?
I could try that when I have more energy, make it more of a priority. I just thought it was supposed to be at the end of the day. Like a lot of these things are,
Doesn't matter. This is what I would tell you too. And we can keep on going with this for a while longer. You're aware of this situation. If you've watched that Inner Supply series, you're not like the rest of your family. Like it's over, as Neville says. Like it's done. Have you read Rich as Fuck yet, or checked that book out, or checked out
I
Amanda?
actually have that. I got it on. It's available on audiobooks, so I started listening to that, and then I got distracted. But I have it, so I listened to like the first chapter or something. I'll get back to it, but I only just got it, so it's just been a few days. I listened to what Neville Goddess did, that whole series she did on
Science to Getting Rich. Yeah.
Yes, that triggered me. Like that really I think the doing things in a like certain way, like being certain, triggered me. It felt like, how can I be certain when things have never been certain?
Right. How can you build faith when you have no right?
Yeah.
So, if that's the case, I would check out that Victor Bach book. I believe she's on the call, by the way, right now. So you could also maybe chat with her in regards to that. But the Victor Bach book is very good because he says exactly that. He goes, how are you supposed to believe something when it seems ridiculous, like you've never done it? And that's, I see, for me, it's like when you give money away, like I personally, you've watched those videos, but like I really like leaving money on the street. And that's easy, get a couple quarters, get a buck or two and like do it. Like, but this is like, money is so mental. And I'm telling, you got to hear it like 1,000 times. And it's the kind of thing, unfortunately, for a lot of us, because like you gotta understand, like I've flown by the seat of my pants in regards to money for like basically 20 years. And once I got into these practices, like the last 10 years, I've done it more so. And it freaks me out sometimes, especially because I've got 2 small children now. You know what I mean? Like, so I've done a lot of work on this, and I continue to do a lot of work on myself on on this subject. And in my experiences and, talking to some people who've done this stuff for a long time, and even seeing people like Amanda and Genevieve who've made millions of dollars just based on mindset stuff, everybody gets freaked out about money sometimes. It's like, it's not the kind of thing you can half-ass. Unfortunately, like, it doesn't mean that like, you have to always be watching what you're thinking or whatever. Like, but like, if you want to change your money mentality, it's something that you have to want to do, in my opinion. Like you have, like, and I can give you very gentle advice. Like my book, 5-Minute Finances, is like, if you want to be very casual about it, but even if you want to be casual about it to change it, which it sounds like you're past that point. Cause I was casual before I had kids. I was very casual about it too. I was like, oh, we'll just come. It always came, no problem. Right. Usually more so, more came to need it. Had kids, got a bunch of shit going on. It's like, oh man, like I got to make sure the money's there, So I'm less casual now, but regardless, it's like, how am I treating this subject? And I'll tell you, like, in my experiences, this is going to sound terribly negative. People probably think negatively about money. 9 out of their 10 thoughts, 90% of their thoughts are probably negative in regards to money for the majority of the population. Not necessarily for everybody on this call, but the amount of negativity around this subject sucks. And so if you can get down to even like a 50-50 proposition where you're feeling really terribly about money half the time, but you feel okay about it the other half of the time, you're going to see a shift. You don't have to be close to perfect at all. You're already shifting. Just keep on going with it. And then, we're going to tie into this letting go thing. The letting go thing is like, the reason that you're talking to me about this is because you feel bad about money. It's not your financial situation. And I'm not making light of your financial situation at all. You feel bad about money. When you feel bad about money, that is a great opportunity to feel the feelings. And that's tough. That's why people don't do this work.
Yeah, because I feel sort of at the mercy of it. Like,
Correct. Yep. Check out Genevieve Rackham too. Her book, Sexy Money. And she's got a Facebook group that's fantastic. She always says, like, if you feel fucked over by money, you're going to get fucked by money. That's basically what she says. Like, and like so that's it. So you've got generations of your family that you love who have been fucked over by money, who feel fucked over, but you're changing that. Not easy. I mean, I wish maybe it is easy. Maybe a switch, lightning will hit, on the way to the shopping, to the mall or something like that. But generally speaking, it's like, okay, I'm doing this money work. Nobody I know, except in these crazy communities, is doing this kind of money work. Generally speaking, I have no good role models except for these wacky people I see online. I'm doing this alone. I'm going to be patient. I'm going to be loving, and I'm going to take this seriously. I'm going to really do it. If you do that and you do some of the stuff that these books recommend, or that I recommend, leaving money on the street, giving money away, doing it's like whatever you like in terms of like affirmations or visualization, whatever, a success indicator. You do this stuff and you just keep going. Stuff shifts. Another really good practical tip that I think this helped me and I think works for a lot of people is like, I don't know how much money you expect to make next month or this month, but just imagine making a little bit more. So it doesn't feel outrageous, just feels like a little slight improvement. You can do that and gradually build your income that way. That's usually feels a lot easier, and you're going to get a lot less resistance than like affirming like, I'm now a millionaire. I now make $30,000 a month. Who can relate to that? Some people can, but that's sensationalistic. It's much easier to be like, all right, let's say like you're making $2,000 a month. It's like, can I imagine and think what it would be like to make $2,200 next month or $2,400? A lot of people can be like, yeah, I could easily imagine that. And like, again, you don't have to know the how. It's like, it's just a slight increase. Feel into that, start thinking what's like, well, I'm planning on making, or I'm going to make $2,200 this month. Do that and you'll be surprised. Chances are, in month ends, if you do the arithmetic, it's like, oh, you did make that money. And then you can go up to 24, 26 or whatever. This goes for any number. You can be making $20,000 a month and go up to 20, say, can I make $25,000 next month? It's that kind of idea, this stuff that doesn't bring a lot of resistance out.
Sort of like gamifying it in a way.
Yep, sure. That's a good. I haven't heard gamifying it that way, but that makes sense to me. Yeah, but anything that makes sense to you, that makes you feel good about money, you should use. Most things that people say about money make us feel bad about money.
I think a lot of it comes up because there are things I want and they all cost money. Even, like if I wanted to take coaching, like if I wanted to coach with you or something like that. And I'm like, yeah, I feel really drawn to that. And I look at the budget and I'm like, yeah, that's just not there.
Right. Right now it's not there. No problem. One day, maybe it will be. One day it probably will be.
Yeah.
And that, like, if you think it can change, and you obviously do, you wouldn't be on this call, for God's sake. If you have the desire and are patient with it, your desire, again, this is your inner guidance system. This desire's a good thing. This is legit. It's over. It's done. In the sense of like, this is what you want, and you want to improve your financial situation. And the letting go thing, if you can just start facing these feelings and facing them openly, they're going to tell you a lot. You're going to learn more and more and more. But it's not an overnight thing. And it's in my opinion, it's not a 1 year thing. But you can be in a totally different, improved financial situation a year from now. I'm not saying that. But the key is gradually feeling better about money and knowing there are going to be some times, some days, some weeks where you've done a lot of work and you still feel like, what the fuck? I feel terrible about money. But I can tell you're there. Just keep going. What will screw you up now, in my opinion, is tossing this aside and saying it's bullshit, which I get. You can do that too. But I think you've opened up the gift already too much. You couldn't turn away even if you wanted to.
No, that's true. I've been at this a long time, but it's just a matter of, you could be doing something wrong for a long time.
Correct. Absolutely. That's absolutely true. You could be doing something wrong for a long time, but I don't think you are. And the thing is, when it comes to money, we can fail our ways to success. You speak to people who are great entrepreneurial minds. It's like, I failed. It's like, what the fuck is wrong? I failed. Bam, something hits. It's not always like that. It can be gradual too. But the most important thing I would say, generally speaking, is like, how do I feel better about money? How do I feel good about money? And often you drop the money thing completely to do that. Banned Money Secrets by Richard Dotz. That's another great book, talking about that. I know somebody else commented about Dotz in this chat already. We could talk about this for a long time. We can come back to it if you want to, but do you feel a little bit better about it?
Yes,
it's okay if you don't.
No, I do. I feel that's definitely encouraging, and I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Those resources I just gave you and that you already know, just keep looking at them. Okay. Or if they don't work, something will click where something else hits from them or something like that. And I've got a money book coming out. It's coming out. I'm going to get it out by the fall, hopefully.
Okay.
2 years late. It's supposed to be out in 2021 last year. But what I just told you, what I talked about in the inner supply playlist is what's in the book,
Okay.
And I would just I do think, do some kind of success indicator each day if you want. Do it in the morning. Don't worry about doing it at night. Okay. Unless there's some other, is there some manifesting technique, quote unquote, that you enjoy doing each day? It's fine if there's not.
I do a lot of different things. I affirm, I'll either while I'm walking my dog, I'll usually go, affirm, and I'll also listen to audiobooks, or YouTube content,
Right. But I guess my question is
I script. I do scripting.
You script, okay.
Yeah, it's fun for me. I can just
good
make up a scene to get into.
Just do something consistently. I would say if the nights are bad for you, that's fine. Nights are bad for me usually too. I'm exhausted. I fall asleep. But the morning time, I make time to do it. You
Mhm.
know, make time to do it each day, and then keep doing what you're doing. It will get better and better, like Kue says. And yeah, we can come back to it at the end if we have time. Otherwise, email me and I'll give you some more, you know, whatever
Thanks so
pointers or
much.
whatever. My pleasure. Thank you. Yeah, great question. So follow. All right, I just want to see the chat really quickly here, and then we'll go from there. Neville Goddess is present too, if you want to ask her a question. Maggie Murphy. Okay, these are some good questions. I'm going to scale back and look at it. If for some reason I missed your question, if I passed it, just write it again, okay? Ali recommended the Abundance book by, Ali, that's by Price, right? That's the one we're talking about. Also, the Abundance book is good. Take what resonates and leave the rest. Totally agree with that. The dreams question at Cosmos. I see that dreams question. We'll get to that. Don't worry, I have nightmares myself is the short answer. Nightmares are good. Don't worry about nightmares. A lot of Richard Dots fans here. All right, here we're going back up. As always, my chat skills are just pathetic. Limiting belief, Tim. Get rid of it. Drop it. All right, so this is a good question. How do we how do you let go when you want something you've never had? And how do you deal with the thought that you may never get it? All right, so Stardust, just type, if you want to talk, by all means, talk. I'd love that, but you don't have to. You can type in other stuff and I'll get to it. But so to let go when you want something you never had, how do you deal with the thought that you may never get it? So let's get mental about this for a second, right? You've never had the thing, but in your mind, you've had it because otherwise you wouldn't want it. Does that make sense? You want something you've never had. Well, you've experienced a desire in your mind, in your body, so you've already had it in that way. Otherwise, you wouldn't want it. So I think maybe what's happening is like, it's more like you think of this thing that you think you want or you know you want, but it doesn't seem realistic to have it. You feel like, and you had the thought, I may never get this. I've never experienced this. I may never get it. It's never going to show up in my 3D reality. You're, in terms of letting go, what's happening is those thoughts are coming in, right? This is, I've never had it. I'm never going to get it in my 3D reality. It's not, you can, question those thoughts, be like, is that true? I'm never going to get it. Am I sure I'm never going to get it? All these people say that, I can do this, and they have all these examples of people doing something and getting something that they never wanted. You can look at it that way from an analytical perspective, but to let go in the, David Hawkins type of way is more like, don't pay attention when those thoughts come up of like, I want something, I've never had it in the 3D, and I think I'm never going to be able to get it. Don't pay attention to the thoughts. Pay attention to how you're feeling. Then go right to the feeling. That feeling is going to be a bad feeling, a quote unquote uncomfortable bad feeling. The bad feeling is the resistance. That's what you can directly work with. So it's like, oh my God, like I'm not good enough. I'm not going to be able to do this. This is terrible. And it manifests perhaps like, let's say like in your chest area or your heart area. And it feels scary. It feels hopeless. You feel miserable. You feel like your life is worthless. Feel that. Feel that. Feel that. Don't pay attention to the thoughts associated with it, with the feeling. Just feel it, feel it, feel it. And if you keep on feeling it, that feeling is going to shift, and your relationship with that feeling is going to shift. That's the letting go approach of David Hawkins. I don't know if that made sense, but if you watch some of the videos that I've done recently on the letting go approach, or like that playlist I did of working through difficult emotions, it will hopefully clarify that. If you want to write anything into Stardust, I can also try to expand upon that point. The thought that you may never get it is exactly that, by the way, is a thought. You may never get it. You may never get it. Is that true? Yes. You may get it. Is that true? Yes. Is it just a thought? Yes. Don't worry about it. It's just a thought. If you want something, if you really want it and keep on focusing on it, there's a good chance that it's going to match up with you in some way, at least energetically. When I say at least energetically, I mean that emotionally, in the very least, you're going to feel better about it. Even if you don't have it, you're going to feel better about it. And there's a good chance it will manifest in your external 3D reality. But if you feel into these feelings that say that, like, I'm worthless, life is miserable, I'm never going to get what I want. If you feel into these feelings enough, your relationship with these feelings are going to change, and these feelings are going to quiet down. And the thought that you're not going to get it in the 3D reality is not going to worry you. You're not going to feel the same trigger when you think about you never getting it. You have that thought and you go, oh, maybe I will never get it. Or you have the thought, oh, maybe I will get it. But the feeling is what's causing you such pain, in my opinion. And that's what David Hawkins talks about so much in Letting Go. And this is dealing with a relationship, you're saying. In terms of relationship, it's the same idea. You've never been in a relationship in the 3D before that you want to be in. You've never been in a relationship. No problem. No problem. Feel the pain associated with that comes up for you. Feel that pain. Come to terms with it. If I come to terms with it, be like, oh, this pain is here. Okay, I'm okay with this pain being here. I still expect to get into a relationship. But if I don't, I don't. But I'm not going to let this pain ruin and destroy my life anymore. And I still expect the best. I still expect to get into a relationship. I know countless examples of people who have not been in relationships who then get into a relationship. There's no reason I can't be in a relationship like that. I hope I'm making some sense here. Let me see if you commented again. Okay, so Sardis, just chime in again if you need more help. You can also email me later, okay? I think my general emotional point I'm trying to convey to you, I've conveyed, but feel free to chime in again later. All right, let's go back here. Sheena, you're reading Rich as Fuck Now and loving it. Great. Yeah, I love that book as well. Fantastic. All right. Isn't it weird, folks, how people don't talk about Richard Dotz on YouTube? It's insane, isn't it? They're crazy. I find it crazy. Richard Dotz is great. A lot of Richard Dotz fans here. So, this is a great question that we often hear. Developing faith is a mother effer. What does that mean? Just kidding. Developing faith is a motherfucker. I don't know if it's limiting beliefs and or lack of patience, but desperation overpowers persisting almost always. Absolutely. Great comment. Totally can relate to it. I think a lot of us can at times, for sure. Don't worry about developing faith then. I know that sounds really weird, but this is the thing. Like Israel Regardie, he really opened my eyes to this last year when I reread his essay on Neville. And he was saying faith is just an auto-suggestion done correctly. It's okay to feel faith is like, I've got very little to say on faith because I don't know if I believe it because of that Regardie thing. So limiting, basically, this question, like about developing faith, like you feel like you can't. It's good to acknowledge that, like that's where you're at right now, that feeling, right? But when you feel desperation coming in, that's when you can let go. That's when you can, like, again, look openly at how you're feeling and start to deal with it differently. When nothing else is working and you have no faith about getting something, you can do stupid stuff that works, like, actively affirm or robotically affirm. You can still focus on what you want, and notice that when you focus on what you want, you feel like shit. You can still focus on it. Desperation means you're not happy right now, which is fine, but it just means that, like, we all want to be, generally speaking, we want to be happy right now. We want to feel okay right now, right? So usually the reason we want external manifestations, specific things, is to feel happy and good right now. So in a way, it's not about the external thing. It's about feeling good and happy right now. When you don't feel that, just recognize it. And then again, you can work with the feelings, and if they feel overwhelming, let them overwhelm you. You'll figure it out. That sounds stupid. It's true. Just keep going. You're persisting anyway. That's the irony. You just have some bad days or whatever. Don't be so externally outcome dependent, perhaps, and be more internally outcome dependent. How do I feel today? Again, this is the benefit of the success indicator or something like that. How did I feel today? On a scale from 1 to 5, generally speaking, how did I feel today? 1 being shitty, 5 being great. Was I at a 1 or a 2, or was I at like a 3, or was I at like a 4 or a 5? If you do that every day and honestly look at that, consider that, you become more internally dependent on what's going on and less externally focused. Focus more on how you feel. And if you notice you feel like shit, sit with it, feel into those feelings. Again, let's circle back to the first thing we talked about. Everything's okay. I feel like shit. I'm not getting what I want. My thoughts are running haywire. I'm a mess. It's okay, man. It's okay, man. It's a bitter pill to swallow. It sucks. I mean, I feel like shit, right? But still, in God's eyes, if we're using spiritual language, it's okay. There's nothing wrong. Furthermore, there's nothing wrong with you, really, if we look at it from this more like larger perspective, right? I don't know. I'm shitty at answering these questions on the chat. Because I'm not interacting directly with people, but let me know if that made sense. Otherwise, email me. I'm again, emotionally, I feel like I'm conveying what I want, but technically, I don't know. I'm going to look at these messages in a second too. People can talk too if they want to. If they want to come into the pressure room. No, if they want to be public on YouTube. Okay, good. That made some sense. Doesn't sound stupid. Excellent. Yeah, less doing, more be. It's not about less doing or more being. That's great, but it's more like feel okay. Like, how do I feel okay? Perhaps taking a lot of action and doing is very good. Or perhaps just relaxing more that day is very good. Sitting with myself and acknowledging how I feel outside of trying to acquire something. That, yeah, sure, absolutely. That's good. But, oh, you're at work too. God bless you for joining in work. This is a perfect work thing. I would also just remember the bigger picture. Like, you're into this stuff and persist. The reason we talk about persistence is because it's very, very helpful to persist. And it's very helpful to just focus on, like, how do I feel? And like, when I feel good, great. When I feel like shit, okay, I feel like shit. This is not ideal, I guess, but you know what? It's totally fine. And then you can ask, this is the other thing you can do. This is broad spectrum. This goes for everything we're talking about. Why do I feel this way? Like, feeling, like, why are you here? Why do I feel this way? If you listen to your feeling, if you change your relationship with the feeling, it will start answering those questions for you some.
Can I ask something about persistence? Like, again, I said, I'm kind of new to this, but
Yes.
so, okay, here's my experience. I go for walks every day, and this is when I'm doing the mental stuff, and that will be very wonderful and not exciting, but it feels strong and solid for, I don't know, maybe a few weeks or a month, and then it's just gone, and it hasn't, there's no fruition from it. And so I think, okay, and then because the feeling, the impetus to do it, the emotional part of it isn't there anymore, I stop. So is this where you would persist anyway?
So when it just goes and you don't feel like the need for it anymore, you don't feel the need for it, or like you feel like it's just not going to happen?
Yeah, it's just
Oh, then
both.
it's
Well, I
fine.
think it might be both. It might, well, partly it is that I just don't feel the need for it. And
Okay,
it's
then
not
stop.
that I've suddenly gotten what I was hoping or working towards. It's just that the need is gone. And then it'll come back. But
Good.
there's that interval in there where I've just let it go.
Great. I don't see any issue with that.
Okay.
If it does it, if you track this for like a year or two and like there's something significant you want to manifest and it hasn't come yet, then maybe be like, all right, well, I should persist more in this way. But
Oh,
that's,
it's only been a few months for me even learning about all this.
yeah, don't worry about it. So,
Okay.
when people talk about like the Sabbath and stuff, a lot of it's that, like, if you feel it and it feels real, after a while, it's like, well, why are you even doing the exercise? Because it's done.
Uh-huh. It feels real, but it's not here, but it feels real during that time. It feels
Yeah.
very, very much right here in my field.
And just drop it. No problem.
Okay,
Yeah. Yeah,
thanks.
of course. Okay. Stardust, I wanted to get back to your follow-up comment. And, I'm assuming this is again still about relationships. I've been doing the feeling into it and feeling the feelings, but sometimes it feels like an endless cycle. I know what you mean. That can often happen where you feel the feeling and you feel like you're getting somewhere, and then it's still there and it comes back again and again and again. I hear you. So a few things. You can first, really my honest number one recommendation when you've been doing work regarding feeling and letting go, and the feeling seems to not shift, my number one recommendation would be to work with a therapist, especially someone who's qualified like an IFS or doing emotional healing work, because just having someone there that you can talk about your feelings with in an open, non-judgmental way, and then have them work with you very gently, is so effing beneficial. So that would be my number one recommendation when you feel stuck. The second recommendation I would make is just if you're feeling the feelings and it doesn't seem to be shifting, there's some tweaks that basically need to happen in regards to the letting go process, because it shouldn't just be a cycle. There's something else going on. And if there's something else going on when you're feeling the feeling, then it comes back. It means that this thing wants to be resolved or shifted out, but it doesn't know how to. And so I personally would change my approach in the sense where I would start asking questions of it. I would do anything in my power to try to figure out why this feeling is still there. Because as far as I'm concerned, I'm working more with the feeling than the fact that I'm not in a relationship that I want to be in. It's the feeling. I know if I resolve this issue with the feeling, this relationship thing is going to probably change too. But that's secondary. This feeling has to be worked with. So like when I've felt kind of stuck letting go of feelings, and like I've done IFS work on myself, but it helped a lot. It's helped me a lot to do IFS work with a skilled therapist and hypnotherapist. And like a skilled person like that will tell you any feeling that feels bad is like a part that needs to be spoken to, or like stuff has to be resolved with that feeling. The feeling's there for a reason. And going to therapy has helped me do that. And I would have never expected that 7-8 years ago to give you that kind of answer. I don't want to say it was anti-therapy. I wasn't anti-therapy. My wife's a therapist, has been for a long time. But I was agnostic about a lot of the modalities. I'm not agnostic about a lot of these healing modalities, especially like the emotional healing work modalities anymore. That stuff will help. But any type of, you want to relate to the feeling differently. So instead of looking at this feeling as the nemesis, you want to figure out a way to not see it as a foe, but as a potential ally. And to get there, you might have to scream at it and get really angry at it to get there. Then perhaps once you scream at it and get emotional, it might start talking back to you. I hope that makes some sense. Feel free again to email me to follow up about this, because I want to make sure that I'm giving you advice that's helpful. Let's go to the dream question here from Cosmos. What if my dreams at night are still nasty, even if I do the inner work? I keep having discomforting dreams. Does that mean I'm not touching the deep subconscious, or am I purging via dreams? I would say the latter. I have nightmares all the time, personally. And I'm not worried about them. If I was worried about them, I'd be worried about them, which is fine. I choose, for me, they're not a big deal. But I just personally, I'm not worried about them. And when people tell me about their nightmares, I say, all right, well, do you want to try to interpret them? I'm not someone who interprets dreams, really. I mean, I've looked into that stuff a little bit, but if it bothers you, speak to somebody about it, but I don't think it's a big deal. And it can be purging. It can be a lot of things. But I wouldn't worry about it personally. Kate from Generate Magic, I wouldn't worry about the dreams. I have weird, disturbing dreams all the time. You wake up and realize it's just a dream. Kate, do you want to touch on that at all, or no? No, you definitely do not have to touch on that if you don't want to. I'm always been like a pretty vivid dreamer. I have terrifying dreams sometimes, folks. And I'm not like, oh my God, there's something wrong with me. Because remember, it's all good, man. No, it's just like, I don't decide to play into that narrative. And I often will like get into like a deeply vibed out state before bed, be really good, in the quote unquote state of the wish fulfilled, right? And then I'll wake up at 3 a.m. with like a horrific nightmare. Is that purging or something else, or just me being weird? I have no idea. I don't know. I've looked into it. I thought about it some, but I have come up with no conclusion that means anything to me. So I choose to make it mean nothing to me. I prefer not to have horrific nightmares sometimes, but if I have them, I have them. C'est la vie. Pesky feelings. I love that. Pesky feelings. I love that.
Yeah, I was just going to say, sometimes like if you have thoughts about something, and yeah, sometimes you'll go like on the long tangent or whatever, and your mind kind of gets carried away. But then afterwards you realize it's just a thought, you don't have to allow it to have any power over you.
Totally. That was Kate speaking. Yeah, exactly. It's just a thought, and then it's done. And it's not real, right? I mean, that's it. That's a nightmare too. Now we can interpret the nightmare. We can do all this stuff if that's beneficial, if you like doing that. I'm not knocking that, but whatever. Kate, you just said too that internal state is overlooked because I feel great doesn't get as many clicks as I manifest the big bag of money, marriage proposal, etc. I feel great should get those clicks though. That's what doesn't make any sense to probably most people on this call. And again, if you believe in these principles even slightly, if you do feel great and you want to be in a relationship, it's probably going to happen. Or, if you want a big bag of money and you feel great most of the time, well, it's probably going to happen. And you have a big bag of money, Daddy Warbucks, Monopoly money. All right, let's keep on going here. Cosmos, do you want me to read this dream or no? ChatGPT was revealing my programs from my subconscious and what is blocking me from being with my SP, namely a belief of the demiurge blocking love. I never know how to say demiurge. And the chat was pouring programs from my subconscious as code. I kept using it to code stuff, and my subconscious revealed stuff last night. If that's working for you, Cosmos, that's terrific. Good. That's great. I mean, if the dream is helpful, utilize it. If it's not helpful, choose not to utilize it. Ah, shoot. I missed David Boda's question. Maggie Murphy. Oh, shoot. David, I apologize for saying your last name. Shit. Maybe we'll edit that out. I saw your question.
That's fine.
Okay. Thank you, David. It was the free will question too, right?
Yeah, correct.
I'll read it. It was a good one. I have an interesting answer. Maybe, I mean, to me, it's interesting, right? Ask you about the old fate versus free will dichotomy. Yeah. So, fate and free will, everybody has a different answer about this, I guess. My own personal answer is this. The stuff we're talking about in manifesting, in changing our lives, right? Like working with our imagination to change our lives. That we seem to have control over in some way. In my experiences, and I've thought this before I ever got into LOA or anything, this deeper truth or something, they were talking about non-dual Zen, whatever, like the deeper truth, whenever like that seems really present to me, I automatically realize, if I then consider it later, that there's no such thing as free will. Free will is like when we're in this conscious world, this 3D world where we think we're a person, we think self exists. As far as I'm concerned, this is a little bit different than I think a lot of people in the LOA community. I don't think there's a real self. And since there's no real self, there's no free will, because for there to be free will, there'd have to be a self. I don't believe in any of that. Ultimately, on a practical level, I do. I'm talking to you right now. We're on the computer. This is all happening, right? And we can choose how we want to behave and act towards each other, and how we react. What we choose shapes our lives. We have a lot of control over that on this conscious, very like we're here mundane way. But if we get deep and words start not making any sense and don't seem to hit the point, I don't see a you, I don't see a me, I don't see free will, I don't see choice, decision in the matter. It's just all there. Does that, I don't even know if makes sense is the right word. I mean, that's just my opinion.
No. Yeah, full disclosure, I'm kind of a layman to a lot of the Neville stuff. I'm an astrologer.
Oh,
and
great.
I recently started watching more of your videos because we have a mutual friend. And but I've been learning about Neville through like Neville Goddess for a few years now. And from what it seems to me is that, I don't know if there's a term for like the followers of Neville, like Nevilleites or whatever, but
Neville,
it seems as, yeah, like my low resolution interpretation is basically that there's a focus on the heart over the mind. And because thoughts in the mind, while they're necessary for life, you're not going to get rid of your mind, right? They try to negate and sort of like butt in and get in front of the heart and almost make it seem irrelevant to living and sort of directing our avatar or our self or whatever. So as a person that overthinks everything, this is very interesting to me, and that's why it's been interesting to me in order to sort of like enhance my, without sounding pretentious, my astrological prowess through like using these different like teachings and sort of like looking at things in a different way. One thing I did notice about that I read a little bit of Neville's book is that he wrote here, the conscious impresses the subconscious while the subconscious expresses all that is impressed upon it.
Mhm.
And to me, that's like the fate versus free will dichotomy. Like it's just like, they're both yin and yang. They have to coexist for the other, for like a left and right has to exist. So that way there's a contrast. So the other one like is actually a thing.
I love that. I love that take on it.
Yeah. I think that we have a similar view. I was just curious to see what you thought, because like you said, everybody has their own take on it. To me, like the way I express it is kind of like, if there's an infinite amount of multiverses that exist, that we could just be in any different like parallel dimension and hop to it. We choose to go to a different dimension like that. However, once we get to that other dimension, which there's infinite amounts of them, that is now a fixed dimension and everything's fated there. So now that sort of like, that's the whole impressing. Now we've impressed on the subconscious. Now the subconscious has introduced us to this new dimension. And then now we're stuck there until, I don't know, we do something else. We're still using the mind though in it, because like we have to interpret how these feelings are going and sit with them. And then all of a sudden there's this eureka moment and we're like, oh, I can like let go or release that or look at it a different way. And then it changes our perception or our perspective on it. So the mind is still necessary, but I think that like the heart should be like driving the car more so. If that makes sense.
So do you feel like the Neville community over relies on the mind, or do you think they over rely on the heart?
I think that, well, the Neville community, I'm not talking just to as a disclaimer, I understand that there's a lot of stigma in the Neville community and how there's distortion and there's misconceptions of what he
Right.
taught. So without going down that dark road, I'm saying that I think that Neville was saying you listen to your heart first.
Mm-hmm.
If I got it right, or am I totally wrong?
No, I don't. I mean, my interpretation of feeling, right, is what he, feeling is the secret. Actually, I think that what you were saying, that brief quote, I think actually might even be from Feeling is the Secret.
It is.
We're not going to go down that dark road today, but one of my big criticisms of I think the misinterpretation of a lot of Neville stuff these days is it's now interpreted with the head and not the heart.
Yeah, that's what I've been getting from the videos I've seen. It's
Yeah.
almost as if there's a lot of authority that's sort of over intellectualizing these things just for the sake of being an authority.
I could not have said it better myself.
Yeah. This is not a phenomenon that's there's
Not
no
just
monopoly
Neville.
that never, this is happening everywhere. And so we could probably riff on this for hours on the different communities that are doing this.
I'm just
cash
curious
grab.
though, because your astrological background, you probably know much more about it than anyone else on this call. How does that tie in what we just discussed, and then in regards to Neville, with your general take on free will versus fate?
Oh, well, for one, there's no definitive astrological perspective. Except for that is the only rule is there are no rules, I guess, type of deal. So everybody has their own chart, and with their own individual chart, they have their own sort of. You'll find people that may have the proclivity to just be in a state where they feel comfortable where everything is fate, and then vice versa. I'm sort of like geared to see a balance between both sides, and I have an advantage of that, and maybe that's why I see it that way. In the same sense that I've talked to people who are like devout religious people who believe in God, right? And then I'll talk to someone who's an atheist, and it's the same exact reason why they believe what they believe. Either they believe in the absolute liberation that, you know, to not be reductionist, but that somebody upstairs is in charge, handling everything, and they don't have to, or they believe in the absolute liberation that nobody is upstairs in charge, so then they don't have to, like, you know, be, I guess, feel oppressed in any sense.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that answers your question, because that's like a loaded.
It did. No, it did. Oh, of
Yeah.
course. I mean, it's, you know, it's a big question. It's not a question that, like you said, anybody can really answer, but is, yeah, very, very interesting. Thank you for that. All right, let's keep on going. 27 new messages. Oh, wow. Anyone can chime in at any point.
I don't know how to raise my hand. I'm sorry. Oh, did I?
Hey, Mary Elena. No problem.
I'm sorry. Would you like me to come on camera?
You don't, well, it's going to be on YouTube, so it's up to you. You're
right. Okay.
Yeah.
No, I don't look good enough for YouTube unless the rest of us, like the rest of you. I'm not prepared. So you're talking, so I completely agree. I mean, and perhaps in my own interpretation about doing away with the self, okay? And this is my concern in the teachings, is that I see a lot of individualism underpinning them, and I'm not comfortable with that. I am not an American. Sorry, I'm not from an individual. I'm actually from from Europe, and so I'm not an individualist. And I do see like some sort of triumph of the will, embedded in these, and that makes me uncomfortable, including in Science of Getting Rich. You know, the presumption that pull yourself up by your bootstraps. I'm not comfortable with that.
Do you know that Wattles was a Christian socialist?
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. It changes the perspective a little bit.
Yeah.
We'll continue on though. I'm sorry. That was a
no. I think I'm done. You know that it's the onus is on you, and I'm not fully. Maybe this is a cultural thing, and maybe not. But it's you know, I think it then bleeds into the idea that you have superpowers.
Well, people believe they have superpowers.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's it. I mean, that's the thing, is that my general recommendation is, like, if you don't like it, ignore it. And I mean, I don't do a good job of doing that, right? But it's like this.
No, I like that.
But it's like, it is true. It's like, there's a lot of valuable information about these different, you know, law of attraction, new thought ideas, as well as spiritual ideas. There's so many other ideas, you know, astrological ideas. There's so much good stuff on YouTube, on podcasts, I guess, and other forms of social media as well, about these subjects. That, you know, I think a lot of us feel like, oh, I should be researching or looking here because there's a lot of interesting information. But as I always say, you got to remember that you're going to be taking in a bunch of junk.
Yeah.
When you're doing that, especially when you're on social media, even when you're reading a book like The Science of Getting Rich or Neville or whatever, there's going to be a bunch of stuff, even in that, that you disagree with. But that's tenfold the case when you go on YouTube or whoever, and you've got these triumph of the will or these super intellectual interpretations of that stuff. And even those people, they actually might have a thing or two that's
Right.
very valuable to hear. But is it worth hearing the other 30 things that they say persuasively with conviction that are bullshit, at least to you, to hear those one or two things?
Yeah.
And that's a personal choice. I mean, you know, if I wasn't working actively with people, I don't know if I would be on YouTube that much, let alone any of the other social media things for that reason. You know, just because it's like, I really want to be careful with what I hear, and I'm not careful enough,
Yeah.
you know?
Thank you.
But it's like, I mean, I get it. Like there's something, it's very justified to try to be on the cutting edge. And people are talking about stuff, you know, in an interesting way in these platforms that you're not gonna really find anywhere else.
Yeah.
So you want that, right? In a way, but you know, there's two sides to the coin, and it's just good to acknowledge that, I think, you know? There's a lot of gray. I mean, what a lot of this comes down
Yes,
to,
yeah,
there's a
uh-huh.
lot of gray, and like this black and white mentality is just, choose whatever word you want, stupid, naive, foolish, you know, it's just, you're dealing with gray areas here when it comes to all this stuff. And it's like, well,
Yeah.
there's something to it, but we really don't know. And it's
Yeah.
gonna be depending on how you subjectively work with it and interpret it. And you can get lost in that gray, and it can be, you know, I don't know, it can be tough. But if you have like if you're very dogmatic, I don't know, this information is going to be tough for you because there's already so many
Are you
dogmatic
saying
people.
I'm very dogmatic?
No, not at
Oh, yeah,
all.
yeah.
I mean, I know it's you're the opposite of that. Like, it's like, I mean, it's like, that's the whole thing is it's like, I mean, I've got much more of a continental perspective, I think, of this stuff, like
Yeah,
you do,
yeah.
than, you know,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah, I guess I see, sorry, I'm gonna be done. I guess I see the consequentiality of taking certain things, right, to their end, right? And what they bring, what they bring to the human condition, I guess. But perhaps I'm misunderstanding a lot of it, just like what you said about Waddles. Perhaps I'm
I mean, again, it's so hard to say. It's like,
language, you know, is so hyped, right?
it's very hyped. Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
you do comment on this, and I like that comment. So yeah,
Yeah.
I'm taken in by that language, I guess.
Well, we all are. I mean, when it's that persuasive and certain, you know, and that's the thing, it's like certainty, right? We were talking about that earlier, about how that's
Yeah.
difficult to swallow. When you don't feel certain, you don't have faith, and they're saying you must have it. Go to a different teacher, a different teaching. That's why that Victor Bach book. I mean, it's like, you know, interesting, like we we're talking about money earlier. Money's a huge deal. I mean, money ties into all this too, obviously, right? This what we're discussing right now. A lot of the good money books in this field they're not written by people who are like trying to make a lot of money. It's like they're interested in the psychology of it. I would say that Waddle's book is one of those books, obviously. But we also, we have to critically examine, especially the older, quote unquote, classic teachers. You know, I mean, obviously we do that with Neville, and, you know, a lot of people piss their pants when I do that, but like Waddles is the same thing. You know, you got to look at his life a little bit, because he's just not just looking at him as like this revered figure. You know, I mean, Maggie and I were joking the other day. It's like he wrote Science of Getting Rich and then The Science of Being Well, and he died the next year. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's like, and he was, you know, apparently sickly before. I'm sure there's a backstory to it, but it's like that stupid, you know, that joke, or maybe it's from a lot of things, but it's like, you know, the idea of like, I'm going to live forever. And then like someone like, you know, they get run over right then, you know, that next
it
second.
doesn't invalidate the teaching.
Right.
It's not invalidate. But it's funny. Yeah.
Right. So again, there's this grayness, which I think we should be comfortable with.
I think
it's tough because people don't want to be gray. All right, moving along. Thank you. Good to talk to you always. Viz, no problem joining late. You can join at any time for this thing. Hold on 1 second. All right, we're good. My wife hasn't texted me yet. The house is still standing. So yes, let's see this comment. Any thoughts about the possibility of addictions, substance, psychological, otherwise, that are not completely kept in check, serving as any kind of obstacle to manifestation? Well, absolutely. I mean, I have thoughts about it. I mean, my thoughts about it is like, if the person thinks they have an addiction that's not in check, or knows they have an addiction not in check, or like, there's some substance issues going on. Me personally, I would deal with those in a different therapeutic modality than just doing LOA stuff. I mean, I've gone on the Neville subreddit and seen that people have cured themselves from alcoholism and drug addiction using Neville's advice. That's amazing. That's wonderful. But I wouldn't suggest that for most people. It might work for some people. It could work for, it can work for anybody, I guess, right? But I would be much more prone to, go to a recovery program or go to therapy or what have you. So again, common sense, this plays right into what we were just talking about with so much gray area stuff, right? Common sense and using this inner compass that we all have that tells you this seems like something that could work for me. This doesn't feel right. It plays a huge deal. Huge deal. Addiction though, yeah, I mean, I would, if I had addiction issues in the past, like I would couple it with therapy. There's nothing incorrect or wrong about being in therapy or having a therapist or a counselor or someone and also being into LOA. They do not contradict each other at all, in my opinion. Yeah, you're so right. The follow-up of that question, just from that Neville quote, is that about the subconscious being impressed. Maggie, if you're still on here, you are still on here. I know Waddle says something about impression too, right? You quoted that. You talked about that in one of the Science Getting Rich videos. Also, Murphy, Kate saying that Murphy describes the conscious and subconscious really well. I would agree. I forget if he uses impression or not in one of the terms. In The Power of Your Subconscious Mind, Murphy describes the relationship between the conscious and the subconscious like at least 5 times brilliantly. At least. I feel like it's like every chapter he does it in a different way. That's one of the most valuable parts of the book. That book's so valuable, but like there's so many different good descriptors he uses. So yep, definitely Murphy describes it well. I feel sometimes, Cosmos, that my subconscious is more positive than my conscious. Yes, absolutely true. Absolutely true. Let's throw in imagination instead of subconscious. Your imagination is more positive than your conscious thinking. Yes, absolutely. Just don't judge yourself so harshly when you're imaginatively out of control. Just be like, this will pass. This will pass. Give it time. Things change. If we don't beat the shit out of ourselves, things get better. General principle. The conscious is essentially the gatekeeper and determines what goes in through the door. Yep. Again, this is the popular, excellent language describing these 2 parts of the mind. Love how Neville interprets the Bible. Sheena, I don't know if we're going to go down that track today because that could get us way down the wormhole. But I mean, obviously, that's what Neville does so well. One of the things Neville does so well. David, looks like we got some new subscribers to your Free Will Astrology newsletter. Glor, thank you, Maggie M, for the outstanding videos and the Science Getting Rich. And you're describing some ways that you're using it. Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you, Glor. Thank you, Maggie. Yeah, thank you again for putting that out, Maggie. That's terrific. I think everybody or most people on here want to thank you for that. It really was a great series. I still have not listened to all of it. I'm only on chapter 5, Maggie. I'm way behind. Again, these comments are dealing with competition and how competition mindset does not work for these principles, generally speaking. I think, again, most people on this call would agree with that. It's so easy to fall into that. I think, Neville uses like the cardinal mindset, right? Where it's like, you, me and you, one of us wins, one of us loses. That's the underlying psychology. While these new thought ideas, it's like, this is win-win, win-win. How can this be good for everybody? God, that feels good. When it's good for everybody, it feels good. I mean, that's how money starts to flow more easily. It's like, oh, I don't have it. This other person has it. I'm never going to have it. How about it's like, well, I feel abundant within me some way. I'm alive right now. How can I flow this more? The little that I have, how can everything work out for me and everybody else? Win-win, win-win, win-win. Yes, thank you, Maggie. All right, good. We're caught up. Unbelievable. We've reached the hour and a half point. I'll keep on going if people want to, but we might be done. I feel like 90 minutes, like these things just are all, they manifest to 90 or so minutes. But do we have any other questions before I go? And again, anybody on this call, if you want to email me, or listen, if you're listening to this replay, even email me, info@radicalcounselor.com, or just my regular Gmail, radicalcounselor@gmail.com, if you have follow-up questions about anything we discussed.
Hi, Tim. Can I ask you a question?
Of course.
So just want to come back to the very start of the session today about that feeling we might have that something might never, ever happen. And I'm wondering if we coach ourselves through this and say, maybe just start to describe that thing that we might never have in lurid detail, like I might never be rich, and say, well, why? What are the things that a rich person has that you won't ever have? And say, well, my house will be clean, so I'll have more time to concentrate on this, on my business, and so on. And then we're starting to make it real by at least talking about it. So whether we say we have it or don't have it, really, at least we're impressing the subconscious. And I wonder if that relates to what you're talking about, maybe just to become comfortable with it, whether we have it or not. Like rather than pushing it away all the time, and let it come to us and embrace it.
Thank you, Philip. And yeah, that it completely relates. The problem, generally speaking, and don't take this too literally, but generally speaking, psychologically, the problem is we're pushing it away. If the resistance to it is not, if there's not so much resistance, it will come in much more easily. So it's like, I want all this money, but I'm never going to have it. And that's huge resistance. You feel, it's like, you feel that it's like there's this huge, you've drawn this line in the sand, have, don't have, I don't have. And it's like, that does not need to be there. It's, oh, they have this, materially, they have this right now, I don't. Just even that is a lot lighter. Oh, materially, they have these things, I don't have them right now. That feels a lot lighter to me than they have this, I don't have it, I'm never going to have it. Very different. And like, oh, they have these things, I don't have them. But you know what? Mentally, in some ways, we're already the same. Or like mentally, if I really get calm, I bet you mentally, I do have what they have. And to everybody on this call, I'm telling you, you do have what they have. But it's see that how we soften the resistance by doing that. And there's 100 different ways of doing that. That's why, again, we can question ourselves, question our thinking. Our beliefs about money are going to be primarily false. Ali recommended in the chat the abundance book. I think it's the abundance book. You'll find it. It's by Price is his last name. He's got this 40-day abundance challenge. It's good. It's a good, I've worked with people who have used it and had a lot of amazing success by doing it. And it's basically just prompts each day to have you thinking about money in this win-win way, and how you are the source of your money, and how if you lower resistance and realize that money's an effect of your consciousness towards it, that your consciousness is how money comes and goes from you, your resistance is going to get lowered. And that goes for relationships too. It's, oh, this person has a great relationship, I'm never going to be in a relationship. That feels terrible. Or it's like, oh, okay, this person's in a relationship, I'm not in a relationship. Okay, that's what it is. I'd like to be in a relationship someday. I'm not right now. Maybe that can change. Oh, I know a lot of people who have never been in relationships who then get into a relationship. Perhaps that could be me. I always talk in terms of relationships, we always talk about love. If you give out love, the win-win thing we were talking about, if you give out a lot of love, that's an attractive quality. And then like, if you're engaging with people and then you engage with people in a friendly, genuinely friendly win-win way, people are attracted to that. And then a romantic relationship can come out of that much more easily than like, I'm never going to be in a relationship. That person has a relationship. I'm never going to be in a relationship. Lowering that resistance. And, you know, there's a lot of different ways of doing that. Does that, you know, supplement what you were saying there, Philip? Do you think that that's something that is useful?
I think so. Yeah, just picking up on the relationship side of things, like relationships are all around us. We could just use them as little practice mini relationships all throughout our day.
Exactly. That's it. I mean, there's so many people you can interact with each day if you want to. And not only that, like a lot of people crave social relationships, right? And you get good socially just interacting with people, being friendly to people. It's not hard to do this, folks. A lot of people are not that friendly and not outgoing, but like generous with their time, and like just like thanking someone for, you shop in their store and thank them, look them in the eye, be like, thank you, and you mean it. Like that means something. If you start doing that consistently, it becomes easier to then get into a romantic relationship. It's connected. It's, again, the same way we look at money. I apologize if someone's in my eyes. But how can we lower resistance? How can we feel good more of the time? How can we feel okay more of the time? Circling back to the first thing. Really, if you want to get real, we're okay right now. We're here right now.
And Tim, just circling back to the wealth thing, just something funny happened the other day. Like I've had this fear building up, I'm never going to be rich, never going to be wealthy. And I started a small business, but it just wasn't paying enough bills. So then I've just been able to manifest a day job. It just sort of happened. It's been great. But then as it's so busy, now there's not enough time just to do stuff. Like, even you can hear my voice, it's building up. But I was in a car park after doing an overtime shift the other day, and I saw the car beside me. It had a mop and a bucket in it. And just the lady just happened to come out, and I said, oh, hi, do you do house cleaning? She goes, oh, yeah. And I said, so 10 minutes later, she's coming to my home like this Saturday, I think. I've got a house cleaning coming. You know what I mean? And it can, just so maybe anyone that writes How I Got Rich book, probably if chapter 1 will always be a story like that,
Yes.
So
exactly.
I just wanted to share that.
Yeah,
we are abundant now. And that the things are right under our nose. It's just like tuning into a radio station. They're not in the future, and they will come towards us. You know what I mean? So I just wanted to share that and say thank you.
Yeah, of course. Thank you. That's a great example. And yeah, that's just tuning into what we have. And again, that's what like Maggie was talking about a lot recently in The Science of Getting Rich. It's like, it's not in the distant future. And this is the thing. We project, I'm never going to be in a relationship, or I'm never going to have money. It's there. The ability to feel similar, to feel abundant, to feel like you are cared by people and that you care is in front of our noses all the time. I'm telling you, if you go out and if you thank somebody, you pay for something, you thank them, or you engage with someone who wants to talk, an elderly person who, you can make their day just by engaging with them for 2 minutes, or like, you can leave a significant tip for someone when you go to get a coffee. Your coffee might cost a couple bucks. And if you leave a $5 tip, that's a huge tip compared to what most people, those little things energetically, emotionally, like that's imaginatively changing how you operate. So yeah, there's so many great examples of being able to do that right away. Don't wait for tomorrow to do that. And it gradually changes our perceptions of what's possible and who we are.
Can I share a story real quick?
Absolutely.
Like when I was first a few months ago starting with all this, my thing is always right now around money, and this is just so weird. I still have to shake my head. I found somebody's wallet that had hundreds of dollars in it, and they were impossible to get a hold of. They were actually from the United States. I'm in Canada. Because all their ID, all their credit, everything was there. And so I waffled. I didn't I didn't want to give it to the police. I have a real kind of distrust for police, but anyways, I did. I took it there, and knowing full well, I said, what happens now if you can't find her? Oh, well, it'll just get dispersed, it'll go to the crown, whatever. Anyways, I thought, well, what an interesting way for this work that I've been doing for it to show up. That, and I thought about it since, like, was that the universe saying here? Was there a different way I could have handled that? I don't know. It's just so kind of weird.
It's interesting. I mean, that's
Yeah.
the thing. And it's like, so this is the thing, is that this is the kind of work we can do today. If we keep our eye on it gently, it's like I'm not worried about the money work, for instance, I'm going to do next week. I'm worried about the money work I'm going to do today. Worried's
Today.
probably not the right word, but it is a good word because it's dealing with money or relationships or stuff that we get concerned about.
It is
Right?
work. Yes.
It's and it's like, so it's like, if I'm thinking about it, I might as well think about it not like, oh, months in the future, unless I'm thinking very positively and imaginatively about how great it's going to be. But if I'm thinking, oh, how am I going to pay for this months down the line? I'm much better off being like, how am I treating money and abundance today? How am I treating my relationships? How I'm interacting with people today? How am I treating my health? How I feel today? Stuff like that. Yeah.
Mhm. Okay.
Yeah. Neville Goddess said, you showed yourself, the universe, whoever that you are, whoever that you aren't, so desperate that you keep someone else's wallet. That was huge. I mean, that's the whole thing. Yeah. There's different ways. There's so many different ways of doing the right thing. And that's what trips us up, is we think, oh, there's got to be a certain way to do it. No, there's all these ways, like what Philip was saying, like right under our nose, like right there. And when we start trusting ourselves more to just follow, I guess this is where I do believe in intuition a lot. Like, do what feels right, and intuitively we're guided to do more of what feels in tune and right for us. It's not a big deal. It's just day-to-day living. And then like, if you make a quote unquote mistake, you just rectify it really quickly. You don't have to fall down, the stairs every time. If you trip on one step, you catch yourself and you just fall down one step. You don't have to tumble down the stairs every time. And I think a lot of us come into these ideas and like we feel like emotionally we have to be on a roller coaster all the time, and we don't. So that's the smoothing out aspect of this that I think is very helpful too.
May I add something about wealth and success?
Yes, absolutely, Kate.
Just what I found helpful lately is when I'm thinking about things like taxes, I think I'm expecting to go up to the next tax bracket next year. So I'm begin to ask questions of the accountant of what I do, how I handle that, because I know it could be tricky halfway through the year. Well, I have no real indicator that that's going to happen, but I'm assuming that's the next thing I'm going to be facing. So for me, I'm on my way to that. Maybe it won't be next year, maybe it's the year after, but I'm already inquiring about how I handle that, because there's the faith. It's just, that's, so it feels, and that for me brings it much more to life. And I've just done a new website, and rather than end there, I've arranged with the guy who did it that we continue working together, because when I make the next improvements and additions, I want him there ready, and I'm paying him. So I'm giving him wealth. And so there's a flow going, and the accountant's getting more money. And when I go up to the next tax bracket, it's more work because it'll need doing quarterly. And so they'll be getting more money. And so the flow's happening, even though I haven't made the expansion as yet, but I just know that it will happen. If it doesn't happen, it doesn't matter, because something else will be going on, because the flow is happening. So that's what I wanted to add.
Yeah, that's a great way. I mean, and that's when it comes to money, especially like, you put money where, what is it? You put money where your mouth is. That's it. That's like, it's taking these actions instead of planning about like, oh, how about if I can't make this? A lot of times we think of worst case scenarios with money. and you're doing the opposite of that. You're like, well,
Yeah.
this is going to happen. If it doesn't happen now, it's going to happen soon enough. So I better do this. Again, that's why I like Amanda Francis so much, because she talks a lot about that, like having this expectancy.
The
Again,
joyous expectancy of the best.
Yeah. And
I
that's
live
again
in
where,
joyous expectancy.
yep. And if you're on this call and you're like, well, I just can't get there, no problem. Again, this is just one, that's just an approach of many. So important. David, Tim, have you ever had a crisis of confidence in your beliefs regarding Neville, et cetera? We aren't going to get into this here. David, you can look at my playlist. I'm not a Nevilleite at all. I've had a where you can find, if you look at some of my Neville playlist videos, you'll see, I mean, I think that Neville said a bunch of bullshit. So that's not an issue for me, because I don't think he was this, I don't put him on a pedestal or any teacher on a pedestal. There's a lot of other LOA teachers that I admire just as much. Have I ever had a crisis, like a confidence crisis in regards to these principles in general since I found out about them? No, I really haven't. They've always intuitively made sense to me on some level. Does that mean I haven't had a crisis where I'm like, oh, this isn't going to work this time? Like, this isn't going to work for me? Absolutely. I feel like that's part of the process. I mean, that's like a lot of it. It's like, oh shit, it might work for some people, or like it's worked before for me, but it's not going to work now. That's your doubt. And you feel into that, you work through it. But have I ever doubted these principles, the general overlying principles? And that's not like the specific stuff that Neville talks about, being very specific about like impressing the subconscious. I question all that stuff, but like the larger psychology of like your imagination shapes your life on a practical level in some significant way. I've just never doubted that. I feel like that's just something that I knew in some way before I got into these ideas, and just reading about them and finding out about other people who believe that, I was like, oh, it confirmed it for me more deeply. So. Yeah, practicing giving money for no reason. Yeah, listen, giving away money it's a great practice. It's also a great practice because when we give away money, it's great when we feel that win-win, I'm giving away money, but it's also great when we feel like I'm giving away money and I feel really fucked up about giving away money right now, because that makes us realize, oh, this tightness, this resistance is there. And then we can, for instance, it's very weird. Like, it just still happens to me sometimes. Like, I'll be like, oh, I want to put $5 on the street. And I'm like, should I really do this right now? And sometimes I will, and sometimes I won't. I mean, like when I don't, sometimes like, oh, I'm just doing this, like, and it's too forced. But sometimes there's like this, if it's like wobbly a little bit, I always do it. And I'm like, why was it wobbly? It's a really interesting thing to then ask myself and ask the feelings that come up when I do that. And I don't get an answer right away. Sometimes it's the next day. I'm like, oh, I felt tight about that because, I'd been spending more this month, and I'd already given away a certain amount of money this month. So I'm just I'm being too reckless. Of course, that's a ridiculous, limiting, absurd belief when I see it in that way. But in the moment, when I'm wondering if I should leave $5 or $1 even on the street, something's coming up and it tells us something. So when you feel bad giving away money, it's still good to give away money if it doesn't feel way off. That doesn't mean go crazy and give away all your money or anything like that. It just means it's a good practice. You learn a lot about how you're psychologically feeling about money in the moment when you give away money. It's like taking someone's pulse. Ali said, also not judging money actions as right or wrong, but that it's all working out for me in my highest good, even if I can't see at the moment. As you've said, the more I relax, the easier it is. Yeah. Genevieve Rackham gives this good metaphor. I don't know if she probably didn't invent this metaphor, but like this great river of abundance metaphor where she's like, you're next to this river and like there's money in the river, it's a flowing river of money basically. Right. And there's some people who are on the side of the river and are like, look at that, all that money in the river. And there's some people who like wade in and take out some money. Right. And there's some people who have like nets and are like getting, a decent amount of money. And then there's some other people, down the river, they've just got huge buckets of money and they just keep on getting it. And everyone else is like, who the fuck are those guys? But the thing is, the money's there. And who do you want to be? Most of us psychologically, a lot of the time, even if we feel decent about money, supposedly, we're standing by the river and we're worried about money, even when it's right there. It's very weird. Money's very, very, very weird. Money is energy. Absolutely. Money is energy. We could say that too, right? Just great. Okay. All right. I think that's it. Does anyone have anything else to say? This has been a good one, guys. Thank you, everybody. Always good talking. All right. Yeah, I'll put this on YouTube probably tomorrow. And any questions, let me know. The sun is really telling me something here. It's telling me to end this Zoom meeting. All right. Until next time, guys, it's been fun. And yeah, just keep on keeping on. All right. I'll see you on the flip side. Thank you. Bye.